Hey everybody, we're back here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook. He's Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast, Bookends, powered by always as STN Sports. And Jay, we just finished the first full week of college and pro. Definitely some great storylines, I think, in both. But we're going to change the format up just a bit and kind of dive into more of a Q&A a little bit of what happened in week one. So let's start with college football first. So top games that hurt the book overall, games that were good for the book overall, and we'll kind of go there to start. For me, it was kind of the late slate of games. Overall, it was good for us, I think, throughout the course of the day. We've seen that the first 3 weeks, week 0, week 1, and now week 2 in college football. But I think the late games, we saw a lot of money come in on UNLV against UCLA, not good. You saw a lot of money come in on Hawaii against Sam Houston. Big ask for Sam Houston to travel there and play late. And then the real late game, BYU and Stanford. Stanford offensively just looks really challenged, and that's with Andrew Luck and Frank Reich there. Just can't seem to get anything going, and I thought that game was bad for us as well. Those late 3 games were kind of bad on the slate overall.
Yeah, and you brought up the UCLA, UNLV, and again, we're getting into that from a Las Vegas sportsbook standpoint, that Vegas Golden Knights feel of when the Vegas Golden Knights win, the books lose. And UNLV and the Raiders are starting to get into that mode of they're winning games, they're getting captivating fans, and most importantly, bettors are cashing in their tickets on these guys. And so UNLV, a heavily bet road favorite, cashed a lot of tickets for the betting public. So again, that was a game that
actually, they were home favorite. They were here at Allegiant.
Yeah, they're a home dog.
Yeah,
they were a home dog,
right.
and cashed that ticket. So another big game that was big for the bettors was Iowa State against Iowa in the morning. Again, a typical Iowa versus Iowa State game, a low total of like 42. It's a 16-13 final for Iowa State as a 2.5.
And it looked like an over in the first half.
3-point favorite. They got a kicker that kicks the game-winning field goal. I think it was 54 yards with like a minute and 50 left. But again, an exciting game there. And another game that was really good for the bettors was Iowa State.
Yeah, so that total was really low. I think we looked at it on the board, and early in the game we said this game is going to go sailing over. And then they hit that normal brick wall between those two teams. So overall, there wasn't a lot of marquee games last week in college football. Not like we saw week 0 or week 1, but it still overall was a pretty good slate. I think if you're looking at LMS too, last man standing, we went into it with 3,318 contestants. After week 1, there's 1845, so not quite 50% of the contestants were eliminated. UNLV really good again for you guys, and Ole Miss being a 10-point favorite, was bad for you guys as well, as they didn't get to cover.
Yeah, and another key, South Florida was a big upset winner over Florida. Again, it was a big favorite, but a lot of people went down with Florida,
right,
with the loss to South Florida.
So we're going to go ahead and dive into some of the games on this week's schedule here that we think are some of the better games or marquee games. Not a ton of those kind of big matchups that we love in college football. Let's start with number 1, Georgia at Tennessee. Georgia's a 3.5-point favorite. Total's 50. Total has come down just a bit. Interesting kind of tidbits on this game. Tennessee has lost 8 straight in this series. Excuse me. Georgia is 1-5 against the number in their last 6 games. Georgia 6-1 straight up in their last 7 games. Georgia, however, is 6-0 against the number in their last 6 games against Tennessee, and the total has gone over in 9 of Tennessee's last 13 games against Georgia. So some tidbits to kind of look at, or betting trends as you look to handicap this game.
Yeah, and there's so many. We were kind of whining and complaining about the schedule with so many big favorites both last week.
There's a lot, right?
And then as you look at this week's card, so many big favorites. But the more and more you kind of dig into the card, there's a lot of decent games on the schedule. Talk about Florida, LSU, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Wisconsin, Alabama. You brought up the Georgia, Tennessee, Arkansas, Ole Miss, another great game that I'm paying close attention to. But obviously the big one for me is Texas A&M against Notre Dame. We didn't get to see Notre Dame after the bye week, after the loss to Miami. And so they got that time to rest, come back home, and then they have this A&M team coming into town. Again, this was a game last year that Notre Dame went to Texas A&M, won 23-13 on that opening week of the season, much like they went to Miami this year and lost. They went to A&M and won last year. So again, a low-scoring game. And A&M has got 2 wins. They're 2-0 against kind of 2 soft teams. UTSA, they beat 42-24, and then they beat Utah State last week 44-22. So they didn't cover in either of those two games, a 23-point favorite and a 33-point favorite. Who knows how much they actually wanted to show those two teams, how much they wanted to put on tape. But again, as I look at this game where we see Notre Dame a 6.5-point favorite and a total of 49.5, that total feels high to me. Again, I know college football totals, they can fly over in a heartbeat. And if you were watching the Notre Dame Miami game, you probably have one of those bad beats out there because that game was a dead under, and then the fourth quarter, we saw both those teams score a ton of points and push the game over. But 49.5, when these two teams played, to 36 last year when they played, Notre Dame coming off the loss, I could see this being a lot more ground and pound from both these two teams trying to impose their will.
And I think you look at this number, too. It opened 6.5. It quickly went up to 7, where it sat for like a day and a half or 2 days. But now it's come back down to 6.5. So some love there for A&M. Just a couple of betting trends here to look at. A&M 0-7 against a number in their last 7 games. The total has gone over in 8 of A&M's last 10 games. The total has gone over in 5 of A&M's last 5 games on the road. Notre Dame is 11-2 against a number in their last 13. Something to think about as well here. So I agree with Jay. I mean, there's not a ton of big matchups this week, but the last 2 that we talked about are both pretty good games. One other interesting tidbit, Notre Dame 5-0 against a number in their last 5 games at home. How about South Florida and Miami?
This is one. I have this actually circled up as, of all those games that we talked about, it doesn't have that massive appeal unless you're maybe.
It does in Florida.
In Florida,
right.
South Florida in week 1 goes and beats Boise State 34-7. Kind of dominating performance over Boise State.
Very dominating.
Where they were a dog in that game, and then they come and shock the world this week and go win 18-16 at Florida. Obviously, a game that they were almost a 3-touchdown dog in, and now they're a 3-touchdown dog again to this Miami team that we just saw. We saw beat Notre Dame again. A chance to kind of shock the world here, but maybe we're still sleeping a little bit too much on South Florida and not giving them the respect that they deserve with 2 big wins over Boise and obviously Florida on the road. But this is a massive test to go to a Miami team, obviously, that just is brimmed with whatever the word may be. They're filled with confidence after the win over Notre Dame, and now now they have their sights set on going and running the table.
I'll give you some betting tidbits here too, stuff to look at. South Florida is 5-1 against the number in their last 6 games. The total has gone over 6 times in South Florida's last 9 games. Miami is just 2-4 against the number in their last 6 games, dating back to last year. Miami has also gone over 13 of their last 18 games. Yet between these two teams, the total has gone under in 5 of Miami's last 7 games against South Florida. So just some kind of betting trends for you guys to look at as well when you're handicapping this game. But a lot of points that South Florida's getting here, and they seem to relish the role as a dog in-state rivalry. They come off 2 big wins this year. Let's see if they can make it 3 in a row. Another game to look at, Florida at LSU. Florida at number 3, LSU. LSU a 9.5-point favorite. It opened, went down to 9. Total is 49 in this one, Jay.
Yeah, and again, a lot of the luster lost from this game with Florida's big loss, and we'll see, obviously, if they can rebound. We talk about Napier, playing for his coaching life after that loss. To go get embarrassed here against LSU would be really, really bad. And obviously, LSU is another team that is jumping forward after their road win at Clemson in week 1. Kind of sky's the limit for them now. If they can continue to go win games in the SEC, play to a 1 or 2 loss in that SEC schedule after that non-conference win against Clemson, the playoff is well within their reach. So this would be a huge step for them to knock off Florida, obviously at home, where they're expected to do it now as almost a 7.5-point favorite after Florida's lost to South Florida.
Well, you remember last year they lost here in Vegas against Southern Cal when they were the favorite in the game. This year they won on the road at Clemson. So as Jay said, maybe a little bit different kind of psyche and attitude going into this game against Florida.
And Nussmeier is still that Heisman Trophy candidate type quarterback. I think he's going to be one of the top 3 quarterbacks we potentially see go off the board when we get to that NFL draft next year. So again, look out for Nussmeier and LSU from a quarterback standpoint. And again, check out the app in college football. We've been talking about it a lot in the pro football and the other sports about all the props that we've been offering, but we're offering more and more in college football as well. So check out that little plus button at the bottom of each game to see the props on the college football. A lot more offerings as the weeks go on here.
So the last game we're going to talk about in college football, maybe it's staying under the radar just a bit, not marquee, but you look at Vandy and South Carolina. Both teams are 2-0 out of the gate. South Carolina opened in this game a 5.5-point favorite. We've seen this number start to come down a bit, total 48.5. Here's some interesting betting trends before we kind of handicap this game as well. Vandy 4-1 against a number of their last 5 games. Total has gone under in 7 of Vandy's last 10 games. South Carolina is 10-4 against a number in their last 14 games. And when these two teams meet up against each other, 13 of the last 8 times, the total has gone under. Yet you see a total here of 48.5.
Well, this isn't your grandpa's Vanderbilt football anymore. Vanderbilt was always at the basement of the SEC and a team that continuously took on weekly beatings. And for the last 2 years, that's just not who this team is anymore. They went on the road last week, played at Virginia Tech. And won a night game at Virginia Tech. So that was awesome. They had a rough start in the first half, but they absolutely came back, dominated the second half to beat Virginia Tech on the road. So that's why they're getting some respect here. But again, this is not an easy place to go play. And I talk about the top quarterbacks drafted in the NFL draft. That's exactly what they're potentially walking into when they go into South Carolina. Lenoris Sellers. Who's going to be skyrocketing up that board. He reminds me, again, not a good comparison about what Anthony Richardson has done with his time with the Indianapolis Colts, but you remember what a high draft pick he was. Right. Lenoris Sellers has that same body style that Anthony Richardson had for the Colts.
He's gaining a lot of traction, you're right.
He's going to put it all on display for South Carolina. He's going to be there at that top of the Heisman Trophy list if South Carolina can keep winning games. So again, another guy to look out for, and again, another game to check out the props as we put up the Vanderbilt and South Carolina props.
As Jay mentioned, there's just a lot of props on all these games in college football. Come check out the board. There's just so much going on right now. I think the atmosphere on Saturday is going to be tremendous in the book, so come check it out. We'll be back and we're going to pick it up with a little pro football on Bookends.
Vegas bets with STN Sports. With 19 convenient locations across Nevada, you're only minutes away from the action at your neighborhood casino. At STN Sports, it's about convenience and top-tier service. Get signed up for the STN Sports app today.
Hey everybody, we're back here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the sports betting podcast Bookend. It's powered by STN Sports. Jason, I'm Chucky. We just finished the college segment. We're going to jump into a little pro football right now. Week 1, Jay, which was fun. I mean, the crowd in here, the atmosphere, the buzz, you could just tell that you guys were super excited that pro football was back, as we were. And as we kind of break it down a little bit, the top betting games overall for the week. And, I mean, it's hard to miss Green Bay and Detroit and the Sunday night game between Baltimore and Buffalo, 2 marquee games that kind of maybe set the stage a little bit in the AFC and the NFC, especially the NFC North, heading into the season.
Well, it wasn't a good week for Las Vegas sportsbooks and the bookmakers. A lot of favorites. We talked about 11-2 on Sunday from a money line favorites winning the game. When we did the 10-20 segment on Sunday morning, we talked about 5 things that were really being heavily bet and the needs for the book. Right. Number 1 was the Jacksonville Jaguars, that the books needed the Carolina Panthers. The Jaguars were able to cover easily and win that game. The Pittsburgh Steelers were another heavily bet team on the money line that got home for the betting public. And our Las Vegas Raiders, heavily bet going to New England as an underdog, win that game, another big money line payout for the guests. And then we had 2 props on the day that were our 2 biggest props. Number 1 was Bijan Robinson to score a touchdown. He did that before we even did the segment because he scored the first touchdown of the Sunday schedule. The other guy was Ashton Genty to score a touchdown. He plummeted in the end zone as well. So in the things I said the book didn't need to happen on Sunday morning, we went 0 for 5, and that was why we saw so many tickets cashed on Sunday.
Yeah, it was. You need that kind of that big money line dog that we just saw last year through the last 8 to 10, 12 weeks of the season. We didn't get it again week 1. Interesting with last man standing, though. We talk about kind of the lack of parity and how many of these teams were dominant, but you look at the pro last man standing, we had 7,141 entries in it, but it was knocked down by over 50%. There's only 33-48 left. The team that was really good for you guys was the Cardinals. The teams that were bad were the Steelers, minus 7.5. The Eagles, minus 7.5. The Steelers, minus 2.5, which lost by the hook. And then the one that was bad as well was the Broncos. Broncos minus 8.5. which won by 8. So those 2 games really hurt a lot of you guys in the pro last man standing. So as we look to kind of dive in a little bit more, here's some topics and some questions that came up. Am I concerned about the Ravens' loss against the Bills? And I'm not. I think these 2 teams you looked at last year, the Ravens won Week 3 on Sunday Night Football, 35-10, dominated that game, and then lost in the playoffs against the Bills, 27-25. Okay, the Bills win Game 1 here. Dramatic fashion, they come back. This is definitely a bad beat game as well if you had the Ravens, but it is only 1 week. Maybe it alters where the home field advantage is going to be in the playoffs. Awfully tough to go play in Buffalo or Baltimore, but just 1 week. But I'm not overly concerned with the Ravens at this point.
No, I'm not concerned either. I mean, obviously they lose to the Bills on the Mark Andrews kind of drop last year. This is, if we were doing a bad beat story,
Derrick Henry fumble,
this would be, potentially to be up, 20, 22 points if they make the field goal there, to give up, 16 points and lose the game in the fashion they did with Derrick Henry fumbling. But they put up 40 points of offense. This team is perfectly fine. They've got a Browns team coming into town this week that they're the biggest favorite on the board.
But the Browns did beat them once last year.
When you're carrying that potential MVP quarterback in Lamar Jackson, as long as he's healthy, with Travis Henry, I mean, he makes those receivers, made Zay Flowers look absolutely fantastic again on Sunday. So no worries for me on the Ravens. But I do understand the question because it's been kind of mistake after mistake when we get to these big games. But we won't have a big one now till maybe week 14, 15, 16, 17 to get themselves in the playoffs, and we'll see how the playoffs match up. But I think the Ravens are going to be perfectly fine.
I think a lot depends, too. I mean, if it would all play out and they were tied at the end of the season and the Bills, because of this game, end up getting home field advantage, that is a big difference. I think it's tough. Both these 2 places, you can make a case, along with Kansas City, Pittsburgh in the NFC, or in the AFC, really tough places to go play. Nobody wants to go play in Buffalo in late January. Nobody wants to go play in Baltimore in late January. So another question that came in concerning the Monday night game with the Bears and the Vikings. Whose performance surprised me more? J.J. McCarthy stepping up or Caleb Williams' struggles? And I'm going to go with J.J. McCarthy because I don't really think Caleb struggled that much. I know he still made some mistakes. I thought he got rid of the ball a lot sooner. He utilized his legs a lot. And for me, people aren't talking about it as much, but that phantom holding call on the Bears on Darnell Wright late in the third quarter, where Bears would have been first and goal on the 8, up 17-6. It pushed them back. They ended up getting another loss of yards after that, and they missed a 48-yard field goal. That changed the entire complexion of the game. I thought J.J. McCarthy made some mistakes. The pick 6 was a bad play. I thought he really struggled in the first half, but you showed why this guy was a national champion quarterback for Michigan and Jim Harbaugh in the second half of that game. I really liked what J.J. McCarthy did, but I'm not overly concerned with Caleb Williams at this point either. I know my brother, my son, and a lot of Bears fans are, but I'm not at this point.
I'm going to go on the opposite end of the spectrum and join your brother and your son. I'm concerned about Caleb Williams, and it's simply based on expectations. When you're the number 1 pick in the draft, you go into the National Football League with a certain set of expectations. He did not deliver in the season that they had last year. He underperformed, and it's squarely on his shoulders. The passes that he makes, the decisions that he makes, the sacks that he takes. We spend an entire offseason with probably what is considered by the National Football League the best head coaching hire of any team, to grab Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions, who was the offensive coordinator with a bunch of success there, and bring him in as your head coach. And we spend an entire offseason talking about that he has all the weapons. You go and spend the 10th pick in the draft in Colston Loveland, and again, we still throw out what is a dud in game 1. Now, again, all due respect to the Vikings, played a good defensive game. Caleb Williams had a nice first drive where he goes down the field, seemed to use his legs a little bit more than what we've seen in the past, with some successful, quick, early decisions to throw the football. Oh, hey, there's nothing there. Let me run out, not taking the bad sacks. And then as the game went on, we just saw the same Chicago Bears, Matt Nagy, Matt Eberflus offense of let's try and throw behind the line passes. Let's try and dink and dunk. Let's try and throw the ball down the field and miss the receiver. And it just felt like the same story over and over again of not having a quarterback that can lead this team down the field?
Well, I'm going to argue a little bit because I think you look at the last 4 number 1 draft picks at quarterback, including Caleb Williams. I mean, you keep hearing this is the year for Trevor Lawrence. You know, he has a new coach. We've heard it for 4 years. He hasn't turned the corner yet. Bryce Young played a little bit better in the second half of last year, really struggled in the game against Jacksonville. And then Cam Ward, I know he went up against a good defense, but looked lost out there as well. I think it just goes to show you how difficult it is to make that transition, especially on a team that isn't dominant. And I think you look at Minnesota, the difference was a team that won 14 games last year. They improved their offensive line. They've got a top 5 defense and arguably the best quarterback coach in the league in O'Connell. So I think to me, I'm not ready to say I'm disappointed yet. I think you have to wait and see how this season pans out for Caleb Williams.
Can I put in a rebuttal?
Absolutely.
Okay. Caleb Williams, number 1 pick. The guys that went behind him, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, both having success.
Well, Bo Nix actually threw 2 interceptions, should have thrown 3.
They won the game.
Fumbled, but they won the game because their defense is ranked number 1 in the league. They should have lost. That was a bad coaching mistake by the Titans before the half. You have the ball first at your own 2-yard line. Denver has 2 timeouts. You choose to throw. They threw 3 times incomplete, giving Denver the ball back at the 42, and Denver scored a touchdown. Bo Nix had a very bad game, I think, against a Titan defense that isn't that good.
Bronco fans would be happy to put a W next to the game versus telling you Bo Nix had a bad game.
We're talking about quarterbacks.
As long as Caleb Williams found space to win, Caleb Williams threw for 121 yards and threw 2 interceptions, and the Bears won the game. We wouldn't be talking about Caleb Williams' struggles. We'd be talking about the Bears won, they found a way. The Bears are continuously finding ways to lose games, and Caleb Williams has to go find ways to win football.
So my brother and my son, Jason's in agreement with you guys. I'm clearly in the minority, but I'm still going to stick by top Bears for now. All right, next question, boys. Should the Giants fast-track Jackson Dart to a role as starting quarterback with the struggles of Russell Wilson? I can't pound the table enough and say yes. I think you've seen so many of these young quarterbacks, successful or not, get thrown into the fire. I think the Giants have to do it. If you're picking an MVP in the preseason, which I know we don't, there's a lot of questions there, it would have been Jackson Dart. I think the fan base wants him. It's obvious Malik Neighbors wants him with the arguments he had with the coaches and kind of the disgust he saw with Russell Wilson. I think they have to make the change, and I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later, especially if they get off to an 0-2 or 0-3 start.
I don't think there's any doubt that Jackson Dart starts a game at some point in time this season.
Well, this season's one thing, but I think before it's a lost season and Brian Daboll and their GM is gone, I think you have to start him if they struggle sometime by week 4 or 5.
I'm in that camp. I just don't. The Giants' offensive line is not particularly good. Obviously, we have a couple, great players, Malik Neighbors, and it's just a team that's not expecting to go anywhere. So let the kid learn a little bit in practice. Even if they put Jackson Dart in, are they winning this week? Are they winning next week? Are they winning week after? Right. I don't think they are. I don't think Jackson Dart changes the fortune of the New York Giants for this season. And I want him to get a little bit more seasoning under his belt in the practice, learn a little bit, get some more, comfortableness in the offense before they put him into a National League Football League game. Let Russell Wilson get through these first 5-6 weeks. The Giants will then be 1-4, 1-5, and then it can be the Jackson Dart era.
It's just such a now league, and you look at Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, who was thrown into it, and Bryce Young, and Caleb, and Drake May, and Cam Ward, and all these guys were kind of thrown into it very early because you're taken with a high pick in the first round. And we saw the Giants do that with the expectation level that this is going to be your franchise quarterback. They've got some talented skill position players. You look at Malik Neighbors, who's a game changer, I think, for the Giants. But I think you have to get him the ball. And Russ did not play well in his last year in Denver. He did not play well in Pittsburgh, and now he's not playing well with New York. I think there's a pattern there that it's Jackson Dart time sooner rather than later.
Well, and that begs the question is, what was New York doing when they picked up him in the offseason and they picked up Jameis Winston in the offseason and then drafted Jackson Dart? So you have a general manager that went out and got Russell Wilson, and then your head coach is going to say, hey, screw you, I'm going to play Jackson Dart.
Well, they didn't know, though, they'd be able to draft Dart for sure.
But again, that's why the head coach can't just leapfrog the GM and say, hey, we paid this guy all this money. I'm going to play the rookie quarterback and let this guy, sit on our bench when we're paying these multi-millions of dollars. Let Jackson Dart learn in practice. Let Russell Wilson go take the lumps that the Giants are going to take, and then when he's ready and he's learned enough, put him in, and hopefully they can find some small successes each week.
I think we're both in agreement, though. It's going to happen sometime this season.
Malik Neighbors might will it to truth as the weeks go by if we keep seeing his frustrations on the sideline.
All right, so another question that came in. Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields. They met against each other in week 1. They swapped teams in the offseason. Who do you think is more likely to see continued success for their teams? It's kind of a difficult question because I think the Steelers are the better of the two teams. And I know their defense didn't play great in week 1, but I think as the season moves on, that defense is going to be really good under Tomlin. He's got some good skill position players. They like to run the ball, but I really felt Justin Fields showed some growth in that game against the Steelers.
If we rewound to last week's segment, we talked about Justin Fields. I think I told you that Justin Fields was going to run for over 1,200 yards this year, and I think he put up 68 with 2 touchdowns in week 1, and he found Garrett Wilson for another touchdown in the Ohio State connection. So I'm really excited about where the Jets are going from an offensive standpoint based on Justin Fields' legs. The defense is what kind of concerned me. Obviously, 4 touchdown passes to Rodgers, some real breakdowns in that secondary. I don't think that's the Steelers we're going to see week after week after week because I think that defense is going to be improved. But I do think the Jets might have to throw the ball more and obviously put up some bigger points because I'm worried about that Jets defense now not very, very good. And obviously they dropped the kick returner Gibson, who fumbled that kickoff return early in the fourth quarter, essentially costing them the game. But I'm excited for Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, when healthy, has been a statistically good quarterback in this league, and from a fantasy standpoint, when you're going to get all those, rushing yards on the ground, he tends to put up some big points.
Yeah, I thought once Cam Hayward got hurt too, that really opened things up in the middle of that defense a little bit. And I thought Breece Hall had a decent game too. He ran well, Justin ran well, came out on the losing end, but not necessarily their fault. Another question that came in is about the Lions. Do we think the Lions are still relevant, and where do we feel they kind of sit right now in the hierarchy of the league? I'm concerned about the Lions a little bit. You can rewind the clock 2 years. They lead the Niners in that NFC title game 28-3 and find a way to lose. Last year, they're more than a touchdown favorite against the Commanders at home in a season where everybody thinks they're going to the Super Bowl. They get beat. They really got outplayed in that game. They have all summer to think about this. Then they go to Green Bay, where they beat the Packers both times last year, and they get beat. They really didn't muster a lot offensively. And you look at Jared Goff without Sean McVay as his head coach or Ben Johnson as his OC. In his last 20 games, he's 0-19-1. So I'm a little bit nervous about the Lions. Are they in that same class now as the Ravens, the Bills, and the Eagles?
I hate to say it, I'm going to pull out the old Aaron Rodgers, relax. Because I was one of those guys that said I'm kind of expecting.
I can't believe you quoted Rodgers.
The Lions, Laporta and St. Brown were 2 of my guys that I kind of expected to have a little bit downward standpoint of what they've been doing fantasy-wise. But I'm not shocked here that they went and lost week 1 to the Packers after acquiring Micah Parsons, sitting there the whole offseason, going to Green Bay. Obviously, the Lions outdoors has not been a particularly strong record for them. But that was a tough opening week game. And despite the fact that they lost that game pretty convincingly, when you go to the numbers, they weren't really statistically outgained or out first down. Or they were in the game when you look at the statistical matchup. So I'm going to put a pause button on the Lions panic. This will be the telling week for Lions fans. At home against the Bears team that just gave up 21 points to the Vikings in the fourth quarter, saw McCarthy have those 2 big touchdown passes and another scramble. If the Lions struggle on offense this week at home against the Bears, then I think you could push the panic button, but not yet. And I think that they're one of those potential for a big bounce back week. Team that looked poor or bad in week 1, with a big bounce back week in week 2, put the Lions on that chart. This is a game that they're definitely the big bounce back candidate.
But they're expected to win. It's not like they're playing one of the upper echelon teams in the league. We've seen this number already go from 5.5 up to 6. Ticket count really favors Detroit. They're expected to win this game. So if they don't, then I think to your point, you have to hit that.
And not only expected to win, I expect that Detroit should be putting up 28, 33 points in this game. We should see this offense really start to get going with the holes that the Bears have in the secondary. We'll see if Jalen Johnson's going to be back in this game. But when they get back home, they get indoors. We got that double-headed monster at running back, Jamison Williams, Amon St. Brown, Laporta. All their weapons come to play when they get home.
All right, so we've kind of broke down a little bit of what we saw last week and some of the questions that you guys had. And as we move forward to week 2 right now, some of the things that kind of stand out. And one of the questions was, what are the marquee games for week 2? To me, there are 2, Jay, that just jump off the page. One, I think, is the Thursday night game between the Commanders and the Packers. I mean, could this be a possible, preview to the NFC title game? I think its Commander team is so much better now. Jaden Daniels, year 2. They can run the ball. They addressed the defense a little bit in free agency. You add Deebo Samuel. You get McLaren back signed. I think they're a really good team. And this Packer team, who I didn't think did a lot in the offseason. I like the pickup of Golden in the draft, but they really lacked for a pass rusher, and they lost 3 of their 4 safeties and DBs going in. You pick up Micah Parsons right before the season. What a boost to that defense and that fan base and the psyche of the team. I think these 2 teams are really, really good and one of the 2 marquee matchups of the week.
I had that circled as my marquee match of the week, which is crazy because we have a Super Bowl rematch going on with the Eagles and Chiefs. Obviously, the Eagles played on Thursday night, so it seems like forever ago that we saw the Eagles, and the Chiefs played on Friday down in Brazil. So, again, these teams have had the extra rest for the matchup. Obviously, a devastating Xavier Worthy separated shoulder for the Chiefs, obviously already missing Rashee Rice. So they lose that game to the Chargers on really the great play of Justin Herbert being able to find his receivers and the ability to scramble. But the question mark exists is who are the Kansas City Chiefs who's going to catch the football? Obviously, Kelsey's done it for the last dozen years, and now we see Hollywood Brown got all those targets. And we're going to see Juju Smith-Schuster. So the Chiefs are really going to what we'll call a veteran receiving core to try and match up with this Eagles. And the Eagles didn't see,
A.J. Brown had 1 reception.
Again, the game starts with the spitting on Dak Prescott, and they lose Jalen Carter, their defensive front, that stout defensive front. And then we see Javonte Williams able to rush for touchdowns, the Cowboys able to really run the football. The game could be flipped, and we could be talking about a huge Cowboys upset if CeeDee Lamb doesn't drop, 1 or 2 of the balls that he should have had in his hand. So the Cowboys really played well. I don't think the Eagles would be happy with their performance. You talked about A.J. Brown having that 1 catch really late in the game.
Smith didn't have much either.
I think he had 6 catches. It was Dallas Goedert who was the leader for the Eagles.
Who's questionable
I think he had 7 or 8 receptions, something like that, the small receptions. Again, Jalen Hurts did it on the ground running the ball. But again, the Chiefs were hurt by the pass in the Super Bowl to go along with Barkley. So again, a huge rematch. But again, the Chiefs losing game 1 and now coming home for game 2. A loss here would be, an early season, starting to ask the question marks. What's going to happen in KC, and do they need to find some receivers?
Well, we talked about it, I think, in our preseason show, is that we thought the gap really kind of narrowed or closed in the AFC West, that both the Broncos and Chargers had kind of closed that gap. You get the Chargers to beat the Chiefs in week 1. Broncos win game 1 as well. You're right, Chiefs go 0-2. There's really some question marks there. And without these receivers, without Rice, without Worthy, they may have to be a microcosm of that team they were last year and win it on defense, not on offense, which is really strange because 3 years ago we talked about how that Chief offense was so dynamic with Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey and some of their young wideouts. They really have flipped the script over the last 2 years.
I had 2 other games that were really close. These games are exceptional. But the other one, Broncos at Colts. 2 teams that won their week 1 games, and I think that kind of whoever wins this game is going to have some kind of sleepy confidence. Hey, we're 2-0, sitting atop the division. I think it's another great matchup of good defensive teams, good teams that want to run the football. Obviously, Danny Dimes.
He played a really good game.
Played a great game as the Colts quarterback there, upset in Miami. A lot of question marks for the Dolphins as we come out of that game. And then obviously, we have a doubleheader on Monday night. Where the Bucs take on the Texans in the early game, and the Chargers head here to Allegiant Stadium to take on the Raiders in the 7 o'clock on Monday night game. So that's another awesome matchup. I mean, the Chargers dominated the Raiders both times last year. I think they won by 12 the first game of the season down in LA, and then they came up here and won by 14 in the last game of the season last year. Obviously, the Raiders are a different team going on the road to beat New England. Some confidence there, Genty running the football, but again, the way they threw the football around, if Brock Bowers is healthy, a lot of confidence there. But again, this Chargers team knocking off the Chiefs in the way that they did. Obviously, the Omarion Hampton running back and the running out of bounds, allowing the Chiefs to get the field goal at the end of the half. But it was the second half, Justin Herbert able to find. This guy's got receivers everywhere, and we were questioning, Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson. Is this the group that this team can go in with? And they looked awesome against the Chiefs. They really did. And if Herbert is going to be that guy, we've always known him to be a good thrower of the football, accurate with the football. If he's going to make good decisions, get rid of the ball quickly, and start to use his feet, which is not something that we've seen Justin Herbert do a ton of, but he scrambled in that late in the fourth quarter to get that win for them. And then we add Najee Harris, who didn't get a full season, an off-season of practice, but the eye is now healthy. He comes from the Steelers, where he's been a 1,000-yard back for a couple years in a row. You add him with Omarion Hampton, the Chargers start to have a scary offense, to go with what has always been a very, very solid defense. So Raiders are only a 3.5-point dog here, so some respect given to the Raiders with the fact that they got beat by this team twice. But the Chargers are one of those teams that they put up another big win here. You're going to see a lot of respect for this Charger team because they do have the playmakers on offense.
This is back-to-back games. The Raiders here getting points. They got you guys the cash in week one as they won that game outright against the Patriots. Looking for a team that maybe bounces back after a loss week one, and I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys. I think it's a perfect game for them. All the emotion of the trade of Micah Parsons, having to play the defending Super Bowl champs, the Eagles at home, and they could have won that game. As Jay mentioned earlier, a couple of drop balls by CeeDee Lamb. The fumble there also kind of hurt them late in the game. But I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys at home against a Giant team that, especially if Andrew Thomas doesn't play, I think it's going to be a long day for that Giant offense. And I think the Cowboys are my bounce-back team this week in week two.
Can I give a team and a player?
I have a player, too. I have two players.
My number one, my team, and I'm going to go to what most people would kind of say a garbage game on the schedule. But you know what? Garbage games can cash you tickets as well. So as much as we always talk about the big games and these things, anything on that schedule has got the ability to cash you a ticket. So find them all. But I'm going to go to the Carolina Panthers at the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Carolina Panthers are a great bounce back and a great bet this week, plus 6.5 at Arizona. We saw this Arizona team go on the road and beat the New Orleans Saints by a touchdown. And the Saints did have a chance to come back in that game, throwing passes into the end zone with a chance to tie that late. But first down-wise, the Cardinals had 19 first downs. Saints had 21 first downs. Cardinals had 276 yards of offense. The New Orleans Saints had 315 yards of offense. So the Saints were not out of that game. They played the Cardinals close. And last year in Week 16, the Carolina Panthers beat this Arizona Cardinals team 36-30 late last year. So I think the Carolina Panthers have some confidence. I think that traveling on the road to Arizona, not a very difficult place to play. Carolina looked like garbage in week one against Jacksonville, so I think that spread got even inflated even more. And I do think that Carolina does have some of the tools. Again, they had the rookie with Ted McMillan, Chuba Hubbard. We didn't see a good game from Young, but I think they're a good bounce-back candidate this week as a dog.
How about the players?
So Nico Collins, wide receiver for the Houston Texans. Texans didn't have a good game, lost 14-9 at the Rams. Nico Collins had 3 receptions for 25 yards. He was a guy that was taken on the back end, probably somewhere between your 7th pick to your 12th pick in a fantasy football draft. He had 5 targets at the Rams. Like I said, 3 catches for 25 yards. He comes home to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where Michael Penix just threw for 298 yards against the Bucs. Drake London had 15 targets. He had 8 receptions for 55 yards. We saw Pitts have like 8 catches for 50-some yards. Kyle Pitts, tight end, who's been a disappearing act for his 3 years in the league. And Bijan Robinson, I think, had over 100 yards receiving. So I think there's some holes in that back end. We all know Nico Collins is that deep threat. But I think the Texans coming home, the early game on Monday night, look for Nico Collins to have that big game. Look for Nico Collins to score a touchdown. And before I let you talk about your player, I want to remind everybody, please go back to last week when I told you that Emeka Egbuka was my ride or die. Get him in every fantasy draft that you can. And I told you that he's going to have a better season than Mike Evans. He's going to have 1,200 yards. He's going to have 10-plus touchdowns. And sure enough, Emeka Egbuka, 2 touchdowns. Catches, game-winning touchdown catch. So crazy enough, occasionally we do know what we're talking about here. But Emeka Egbuka, thank you. Led me to a lot of fantasy football wins this week.
Sure did.
And hopefully led you guys to some fantasy football wins. But again, he was a nice steal of the draft for me.
If I'm looking at a couple of players to bounce back, I'm going to go with 2 quarterbacks. One is Bo Nix. Week 1 against Tennessee, threw 2 interceptions, probably should have thrown 3, took a sack and fumbled. I think he has a little bit of a bounce back game here on the road against Indianapolis. And the other one for me is that he got a lot of ink in the offseason. He probably was right outside of the top 12 as far as taking a quarterback for fantasy, but was getting a lot of traction and love, and that was Trevor Lawrence with Liam Cohen, his new head coach, the OC from Tampa, who did wonders with Baker Mayfield. But I think it was more game script than anything else last week. Here they play at Cincinnati. You're going to have a very high-scoring game here between these 2 offenses. I think Trevor Lawrence is a big bounce-back game in Week 2. So we're going to look at some the good, the bad, and the ugly, kind of our new segment that we're bringing back, our old news segment. So if you had to pick something good for Week 1, what would it be?
Something good for Week 1. Well, it was the Minnesota Vikings. We didn't have a lot of games that we won from a standpoint, so we were big Viking fans on Monday night, and the game didn't look good. And after the Sunday results, it was not pretty. So to finally be able to win an NFL game and put a winning day together from an NFL standpoint, I'll take the Minnesota Vikings, even though it was at the jest of our Chicago Bears.
I'm gonna actually not go to the NFL. I'm going to go to the WNBA. And for me, the good is the Las Vegas Aces. I mean, this Aces team has just been unbelievable. Congratulations, 15 straight wins, tied for second right now with the Atlanta Dream, the WNBA standings. Dream have been really good, too. I think they've gone 8-2 in their last 10 games. But wow, this Aces team, after being kind of teetering around 500 earlier in the season and not looking like they were in sync and just not playing good basketball, they are by far, for me, the best story in sports right now. How about the bad?
I'm going to go deep inside the NFL football for my bad. And again, we sit here and watch every game all weekend. But the Tennessee Titans, I don't know how many of you, obviously you guys had a lot of Denver Bronco tickets were written. But at the end of the half, the Tennessee Titans have the ball at their own 3-yard line with 32 seconds left in the half. And the Denver Broncos have 2 timeouts. So if the Titans run the ball on first down, Denver calls a timeout. The Titans run the ball on second down, Denver calls a timeout. The Titans run the ball on third down. The half ends. And
right.
The Tennessee Titans go into halftime with a 6-3 lead as an 8-point underdog on the road. Something that I think you would definitely want to take.
For a young rookie quarterback.
Especially the fact that my rookie quarterback is sitting on the 3-yard line with 32 seconds left. But that's not today's Tennessee Titans. They're super confident, and with 32 seconds left in the half at their own 3-yard line, they drop back to pass on first down. They don't force the and it's incomplete, and they don't force the Broncos to use a timeout. So, hey, we made a mistake. Let's compound the mistake, and let's drop back to pass on second down. And it's incomplete. And we didn't take much time off the clock, and we didn't force the Broncos to use a timeout. So let's do the same thing on third down. We'll drop back to pass, not make the Broncos force the Broncos to use a timeout, and then we'll punt. And we'll give the Broncos the ball at the 46-yard line. I think there was 19 seconds left on the clock, and the Broncos have 2 timeouts. And two plays later, Cortland Sutton's catching a touchdown pass in the end zone. And coincidentally, the Titans then go back and return the kickoff for a good number, and then able to kick a field goal to end the half, 10-9 Broncos. But in today's NFL, the details matter. And if you're the Tennessee Titans head coach, offensive coordinator, whoever made the decision to not get out of the half with a 6-3 lead, just run the ball on the line, it's bad. It is a bad decision.
Don't you agree? I mean, if they were at the 30, I understand it a bit. But being at your own 2-yard line, a rookie quarterback, he's not going to want to take a sack and change the complexion of the game. He's going to get rid of it fast, and he threw 3 incompletions really fast. It just made no sense that they put that young quarterback in that position with under a minute to go.
It's a job head-scratching question of when they're ready to fire that coach or that offensive coordinator. You can come back to that situation and ask, what were you thinking?
That could be like I think our new segment's going to be, what were you thinking? For me, the bad and the ugly are almost two in the same. And that's the Browns, who missed an extra point and a field goal. The Jets, who had a double-digit lead and fumbled the kickoff. The Cowboys, who dropped a bomb and fumbled the ball in the red zone. There's so many teams that had opportunities to actually win games, but didn't do it because they made a bad mistake or a poor decision late in the game or the half, like Jay mentioned, for Tennessee. That, for me, the bad and the ugly are compiled into one category right now, where some of these teams had opportunities to win and just made really bad decisions or bad mistakes that ended up ultimately costing them the game.
Yeah, I don't think you get any uglier than what the Cleveland Browns fans suffer through on a year-to-year basis. To have Cincinnati come in there as a 6-point favorite, really dominate them on the defensive side of the football. I think the Cincinnati Bengals had 7 yards of total offense in the second half, and to have a kicker miss an extra point and miss a 35-yard field goal that would have won the game for you, just very, very difficult and ugly. Ugly is the only way you could put it. And obviously it was a chance for the books. That was one of those key games on the money line that would have been a big upset winner. But again, it kept everybody alive in their survivor pools. It's got everybody's pockets aligned. So again, the games are on the board this week, and we're looking forward to another great week of college and pro football.
I know we talked a lot about the college and pro football and broke down last man standing and some of your questions and stories, but it's not just football. Touched a little bit on the Aces. Don't forget that baseball, you've got all these pennants kind of winding down right now as teams are jockeying for kind of wild card or maybe the division, and we'll have so much stuff up when the postseason rolls around. But this Saturday at our books, we're going to be showing the Canelo Crawford fight. So what an opportunity to come out, not only enjoy everything our properties have to offer, but to be able to sit in here and watch this big fight on Saturday night is going to be fun.
We've been talking about Vegas value, and we've got $3 beers, $3 shots, $1.99 margaritas, and now free boxing. Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford, Saturday night, should be around 8 o'clock. The main event will go on for free in our sports books. Absolutely come in. It's going to be packed, and take advantage of that Vegas value with those great drink specials.
I really think this Saturday is going to be a knockout. You know, I knew he'd laugh, so, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So come on out, grab a seat, have some fun, enjoy, as Jay mentioned, some of these great beverage specials. All the restaurants at all of our properties are phenomenal as well. Don't forget to get signed up for STN Sports. They'll have that up to $50 no-worry wager going on. Just a lot of cool stuff going on in the racing sports world right now.
We always talk about the no-worry wager for all new signups. Take advantage of that $50 no-worry wager. But we don't talk about all the time is the incredible benefit that you get every day as an STN Sports account with our match of the day. And we throw in a 10% bonus on a game every single day. When I say a 10% bonus, what that means is when we look at a football game where a money line favorite is minus 165 and the other side is plus 145. When you bet that match of the day, that $1.65 favorite becomes a $1.55 favorite. Right. So you get 10 cents of that juice off. Or if they're a dog that is plus 145, you're going to boost them up to a plus 155. So take advantage of that match of the day. It's in there every day, highlighted at the top of the app in that bright pink. Very, very advantageous for you every single day on the app.
So match of the day, new signups, no worry wager, prop menu that is so extensive. You can have so much fun with it. Check all this stuff out, you guys. We wish you well and good luck in week 2. For Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast. Bookends powered by STN Sports. Good luck, and we'll see you guys next week.